the account that blocked me and does not like me at all, Slatsism, one of these like turf magazines. I think Redux is a turf magazine, isn't it? She actually made contact with the alleged boyfriend of the Wisconsin shooter. He was very graciously provided me the full manifesto, which I verified by having him screen record himself, opening it from a direct link the shooter sent to him via WhatsApp. I told him I would do my best to dispel some of the misinformation and present things as truthfully as I was given them, and I will hold myself to that. She ended up watermarking the manifesto, which is insane. Like, I can't believe that she ended up watermarking the manifesto itself. And also, make no mistake, this outlet that she writes for is like one of those weird radfem right-wing turf outlets, like an anti-trans outlet that she writes for. So just take everything that this person is saying and doing with a grain of salt, especially considering that the manifesto's authenticity has yet to be confirmed by the police. Why won't they investigate where she got the manifesto from? The doc was private. Well, it seems like she got it from the girl's boyfriend, the alleged boyfriend of this girl. This person or the shooter? No, the person that got access to the manifesto. Slatsism is the person that got access to the manifesto. She writes for a right-wing anti-trans outlet called Redux Mag that tries to cover anti-trans commentary from the perspective of being pro-women, okay? I told him I would do my best to dispel some of the misinformation and present things as truthfully as I was given them. And I will hold myself to that. Her boyfriend knew her as Samantha Rupp now. She also went by a different name, one which was also feminine, but adopted the name Samantha. And this was the name her boyfriend says she had on her school identification card. She was a student at Abundant Life. She was born on November 7th, 2009. She was born female and not transgender. Her boyfriend was born male and is not transgender. The reason why she's bringing this up partially is because there were already common narratives. Yes, she's 15 years old. Chaz, she's not explicitly a femcel. She's a Nazi extremist who hates minorities and scum and degeneracy. Yes. How is any of this femcel? She has a boyfriend, admires male shooters, acts tomboyish. It sounds like she's just a right-wing bigot. No, when I say femcel, I mean like she frequented the incel circles, is a groiper. That's what I'm saying. As a 15-year-old, looking at her profile, she is very much a far-right neo-Nazi groiper. It doesn't mean that she's like, I don't know, has no relationship with members of the opposite sex or something. Crazy work being 15 and a groiper? I don't think it's that crazy. Groiper, for those of you who don't know, because there's a lot of boomers in here and a lot of people who are not extremely online, is a terminology applied to people who frequent 4chan poll, people who are in Discord circles, who believe in like esoteric neo-Nazi ideas, okay? And yes, 15-year-old is the primary demographic for a groiper. What's shocking here is not that she's a 15-year-old groiper. What's shocking here is that she is a female 15-year-old groiper. Her manifesto was titled War Against Humanity. Her manifesto is 6 pages long. In her manifesto, she spoke about having an extremely difficult relationship with her parents. She also referred to as scum. She also claims her family didn't love her or want her and expresses feeling like the wrong child of her family. She says she had planned to commit suicide a long time ago, but felt committing a shooting was better for evolution rather than just one stupid, boring suicide. She expressed deep admiration for Pekka Erik Auvinen, Arda Küçükyetim, and Vladislav Rosiliakov. Arda Küçükyetim, I am very familiar with. Arda Küçükyetim is the Eskişehir neo-Nazi groiper in Turkey who tried to do a mass stabbing at a mosque, if I'm not mistaken. He was a ginormous loser. And if you know who he is and you hail him as a hero, that means you are incredibly invested in like white supremacist internet shit. The United States also arrested white supremacists that inspired the Turkish attacker, for the record. U.S. officials said Monday 2 leaders of a white supremacist group who were also the inspiration for a Turkish youth stabbing 5 people in Eskişehir were arrested. They face charges of seeking to spark a race war and attacks on Jews, immigrants, and members of the LGBTQ community using an online forum known as Terrorgram. Dallas Humber, 34 of Elk Grove, California, and Matthew Allison, 37 of Boise, Idaho, were taken into custody on Friday. Today's indictment charges the defendants with leading a transnational terrorist group dedicated to attacking America's critical infrastructure, targeting a hit list of our country's public officials, and carrying out deadly hate crimes, all in the name of violent white supremacist ideology. Humber and Allison faced multiple charges, including soliciting hate crimes. One of the people that was in these groups basically was like a lone wolf in Eskişehir. His name was Arda, and he did like a mass stabbing attack. Humber and Allison faced multiple charges, including soliciting hate crime and the murder of federal officials, distributing bomb-making instructions, and conspiring to provide material support to terrorists. According to the indictment, Humber and Allison used the encrypted Telegram platform to promote their white supremacist ideology and communicated with followers on a forum dubbed the Terrorgram Collective. They promoted the belief that violence and terrorism are necessary to ignite a race war and accelerate the collapse of the government and the rise of a white ethno-state. It said Humber and Allison allegedly joined Terrorgram in 2019 and became leaders of the group in 2022. After another leader was arrested, followers were led to believe they would become saints by committing an attack in furtherance of white supremacist accelerationism, the indictment said. At least 2 attacks have been linked to Terrorgram, a live stream stabbing of 5 people by an 18-year-old man outside of a mosque in Turkey on August 12th, and the fatal shooting of 2 men at a gay bar in the Slovakian capital of Bratislava in October 2022. The Turkish attacker allegedly stated in a manifesto that he wanted to be recognized as a saint, and the 19-year-old Bratislava assailant sent his manifesto to Allison and then killed himself, the indictment said. The Turkish attacker, identified as Arda K. Küçükyetim, I believe is his name, that she was talking about. Arda Küçükyetim, the Madison, Wisconsin school shooter also brought his name up in the manifesto, was arrested on charges of attempts at multiple murders after he fled the scene. His victims were mostly elderly people resting outside the mosque in central Turkey's Eskişehir. Arda Küçükyetim was wearing a helmet and a skull mask similar to those worn by white supremacists in the United States. This is what happens in the most reductive ways possible. I will cover this as, this is what happens when you do too much online. Bu tipler Türkiye'de cidden Elon Twitter'ı alınca çoğaldı. Resmen ABD'deki sorunu ithal ediyorlar. İnseller falan oluştu hep burada. Yeah. Apparently, Twitter becoming so firmly far right and so open to neo-Nazi sentiment has caused incel movements and neo-Nazi movements to grow in popularity online amongst the Turkish youth as well. Ameliyana says that America is basically exporting this sort of violent ideology and radicalization online. They have saints on Terrorgram and even a whole ass calendar to celebrate the dates of their attacks. They try to goad more attacks by saying they will saint you if you do well enough. Yeah, this is yet another danger of not having any third spaces, not having any sense of community, not really existing in the real world around other human beings, and only finding a sense of common purpose online as you desperately seek out more and more hyper-focused groups, echo chambers online. This is what happens when you have very little association with the real world and spend a whole bit of time, and it, I think, accelerated during COVID as well because people just simply could not go outside, where some people found my community, some people found this community, other people found these insane right-wing communities, and they required more and more closeness with other people and ultimately moved further and further down the steps of radicalization. This is why I always urge people to snap themselves out of the hug boxes that they exist online. It's a terrifying prospect. Why would a girl in the Midwest be so inspired by a Turkish neo-Nazi? Why would a Turkish neo-Nazi be so inspired by American neo-Nazis? It's because it is a global network of like-minded fascists, older fascists that are actively trying to radicalize younger people into fascism and successfully doing so, especially when they meet people in their most vulnerable moments. And it's not just one place. This is just one of the many different Telegram groups that have been taken down or are actively monitored by federal law enforcement agencies. But yeah, going back to it, there's some information. We could potentially go through the manifesto, but I think it's more interesting. Like just her background in and of itself is more interesting. Oh yeah, the shirt is a Columbine reference, I guess. On the right, today's Madison, Wisconsin school shooter Samantha Rupp. No, the shirt she wore clearly referenced the Columbine school shooting. One of the Columbine shooters wore that exact shirt. She also frequented forums where school shooters were idolized, so it has nothing to do with the band, but the symbolism. Yeah, that makes sense. Apparently, one of the people that was mentioned in her, this is the school shooter, one of the people mentioned in her, this is AF Post, which is also another neo-Nazi America First Post. It's a literal neo-Nazi news network, basically. Radfem Hitler, also known as Hollow Earth Turf, deactivated after being named in the Wisconsin School Shooters Manifesto. The shooter said Radfem Hitler is vindicated now. The shooter also disparaged moids and foids. The leak reportedly comes from the shooter's Discord. I don't know if that's real or not. It's a what do you call it? It's America First post. So I'm not going to go along with this. Just so you know, I'm just letting you know that these are there are a bunch of common accounts that end up posting misinformation. And the America First post, if you see anything from those guys, remember that they have a very specific interest in mind. The reason why I mentioned like the biases of the person that investigated these matters, the reason why I mentioned that is because I want you to also look at all of this information with a grain of salt as well, considering that none of this has been officially confirmed yet. However, the reason why I brought this up and the reason why I brought up the misinformation is because Libs of TikTok herself immediately went, the Madison school shooter complained about the patriarchy and wrote that every single male must be wiped out from babies to the elderly. Only then women will be free to create a new world. Leftism really destroys lives. And she got this information from Mr. Andy No. And then it turned out that the shooter actually was a neo-Nazi, far-right neo-Nazi femcel who followed white supremacist and Groyper accounts. Not a surprise that Libs of TikTok is trying to paint her as a leftist. If you think feminism is kill all men, then yeah, you're going to misread everything that's happening. So she tweeted it and then deleted it. These guys have one speed, okay? Immediately blame the left. Immediately blame like what you consider to be the left, no matter what happens. The manifesto was the only document that says she was 15 before law enforcement corrected from 17 to 15. So I think it's likely the manifesto is real. Yeah, there are some reasons as to why I'm still presenting this person's investigation. And the reasons are because Slatsism's information, regardless of putting your own watermark on a manifesto of a neo-Nazi, which is insane to do to begin with. But the reasons as to why I'm saying that this is most likely correct is because a lot of the information that has come out in mainstream media that was verified afterwards actually confirms some of the stuff that she had uncovered already. Police have now corrected the record live and confirmed the shooter was 15 as stated in the manifesto I posted here earlier. Previous mainstream media reports claiming the shooter was 17 were incorrect.
Shooter are dead. Ready?
Yes.
All right, 3 people, including the shooter, are dead. Identified the shooter for you. A teacher and a teenage student were pronounced dead at the scene. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. 2 students remain in critical condition and have life-threatening injuries. A teacher and 3 students were treated for non-life-threatening injuries, and 2 of those have been released or discharged from the area hospital.
I'm just going to jump in. It's 2 students in critical condition, and then 4, including a teacher, and 3 students with those non-life-threatening injuries.
Thank
you. Lucas from the State Journal.
How did this 15-year-old get a hold of this gun? You know?
Why are they so quick to release a school shooter manifesto? They're not. The media is very protective over stuff like this, and oftentimes will refuse to release the manifesto of any shooter. Mainstream media usually won't release the manifesto. They'll basically point to it if they have access to it. They'll point to it to ascribe motive, but it's not mainstream media that released the manifesto. It's some random turf person who works for Redux Mag, which is like an anti-trans outlet, a turf outlet. They didn't release Luigi's manifesto. They only made inferences to it. Part of the reason why they don't release manifestos is because they don't want to urge copycats. They don't want to create copycats. There are 6 pages total, according to Slatsism. And this is some of the screenshots. War against humanity, the creation of a disaster. Why is this so unfair? Hatred, something everyone has gotten in a sense. Some people think it's pure nothing, but because the hate they make, it ends up killing them without knowing it, which go right ahead. I don't mind, but kind of do at the same time. What the Okay. One thing that I immediately noticed when I was reading this was like the literacy rates are abysmal in this country. She is 15 years old, so that probably is a part of it. But Jesus Christ. You think the parents will go to jail? Potentially. The human scum is color and the way people are raised. I've grown around people who do not care or give one single care in the world and smoke their lungs out with weed and drink as much as they like as they can. Like my own father, I've grown to hate people in society. It's truly not my fault, though it never was. But all of you in the world have done to me is pick and tease me. You've pushed me into a corner with no help whatsoever. It almost reads like it was like written in a different language and then translated through like a shitty AI translator. Humanity is filth. I don't like filth, nor I want to live in it, nor should anyone else. I know it follows me and how it was followed me, and I will follow everyone because of how the world is rumored. There were so many things I wanted to do as a kid, yet I can admit I was afraid of other kids and also even with my own parents, but I don't even trust them. And at the age as well, I never will. My parents are scum. There's nothing that will save me. It's like an angsty teenager, except many people go through that phase in their lives. They don't end up on pro-terror telegrams and also live in the United States of America so they can go out and get a gun or get their parents to get them a gun and then, shoot people with that gun. That's the problem. You can't fix all of these issues, but if you want to tackle at least some of the common denominators here, any number of different things will do. This is, as is the case of every other school shooting, as is the case with every other mass shooting in general, virtually all gun violence has one singular common denominator, and that is absolutely the readily available nature of guns in the United States of America. I don't know, not everyone has abused Hasan. Her parents seem extra bad. We don't know anything about her parents. I am not going to make inferences about her parents. I'm not going to make inferences about anything other than tangible things that I can verify. And given if the manifesto is the real manifesto, I think that the tangible things that you could verify are that like she definitely is. She's definitely fucked up in the head, but also ventured into online spaces that are incredibly far right. But I'm certain that if your 15-year-old has not only become a neo-Nazi, but like straight up is in Terrorgram, a telegram specifically dedicated to like creating white nationalist race riot accelerationists, like race war accelerationists, then yeah, your parents failed pretty spectacularly. The issue here is that a lot of the angst and anger and resentment that she experiences is like fairly commonplace for a 15-year-old. What's not so common is how these 15-year-olds, and when they're even younger than 15, basically, find themselves in the throes of right-wing radicalization. If you care about the ideology of the shooter, and I don't even think that the ideology of the shooter matters all that much in this process. It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter what their ideology is. If you want to tackle the issue of gun violence, you have to tackle guns in general. And I do treat many of this other fascinations as a simple mechanism of distraction. Ultimately, there are obviously neo-Nazis and whatnot all around the country, all around the planet, as a matter of fact. She even seemingly mentions the Turkish one. And the Turkish neo-Nazi also comes from that same telegram. The difference with the Turkish one was that he had a knife. Now, you can say she only was able to kill 6 people or 2 people, herself included, so technically 3, whereas the shooter in Turkey, or the knife attack in Turkey, killed 5 people. But the targets were different, the situation was different, and there are plenty of other lone wolf, white supremacist, neo-Nazi terrorists that end up killing far more than 5 people. I don't even trust them, and at that age I didn't well, and my parents are scum. There's nothing that will save them to make me think good of them ever again. No family ever trust and never trust society. There's 2 people and only 2 people I would trust, one partially and one I would never doubt. I can agree that I don't know what I'm doing in my life, but neither my parents or anyone around me. I've changed and I will not go back to that ever again. I'm hard and I'm different. The situation of a lifetime is get the fuck out moment and don't come back. I will never go back and nag my way through life. It's not even my fault though. It's everyone else's. It has to be theirs and not mine. It's pure idiotic from people to cause this, but it's a good thing that happens, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. Holy shit. Maybe you'll see me as a weirdo, a freak, just as some of you do now, but I'm not like the others. I would never want to be like them. And then the rest of it has a bunch of N-words peppered into it. Once you know, you'll never be proven guilty on all charges that we should be killed in a good way, in a way that's simple and more painful than anything. Revolution and population. The revolution should be well. The population should be well, but it's not. It never will be. I want to change that, but will I truly? What? I can't. She talks about black people. It's just N-words, though worse. Once you sleep with one, you are one. I don't care who you think you are or what you've done good for this world. 15 years old, man. What's shocking is like having this opinion when you're in Madison, Wisconsin. There are like 300 total black people in Madison, Wisconsin. That's part of the reason. That's part of the problem, is that segregated communities end up churning out these sorts of unimaginably racist results in general. Yeah, there's moments in the manifesto where she says she knows her words or whatever, but some more of the Wisconsin shooter info. 3rd page, her boyfriend had known her for 2 years. They were in a long-distance relationship and never met in person. They met on social media. He says she never previously expressed any desire to commit a shooting, only sent him her manifesto the day of the shooting. Timestamps of their messages shown to me demonstrate she sent it to him via WhatsApp. She posted on Twitter. Shooting occurred on. She posted on Twitter 11:50 a.m. Eastern. The shooting occurred at 11:57 a.m. Eastern. He did not see her message until 1:12 p.m. Eastern, at which point the act had been committed and she was already deceased. He describes her as being kind, generous towards him, and cheerful. He describes her as always making him gifts and never expecting anything in return. Oh, here are some of the mentions. One true ideal is so-called future, the future plan of revenge from its own inspiration of more leading more. True inspiration of mind of thought passed on from others rather than rotting. Like everyone else, simply a guy who knew what he was doing, not ruining his life instead. Pekka Erik Auvinen was one of her inspirations. The other one was Arda Küçükyetim, the Turkish stabber, puts their deaths down as well, like saints. And then 18-year-old Vladislav Rosilyakov. There's something weird about his boyfriend. He claims to not have known, but also claims that he tried to tell her not to for 2 years. His Twitter is also Nazi coded to the max. He's weird as yeah. On page 4 of her manifesto, Samantha says she acquired the weapons to commit the shooting through lies, manipulation, and my father's stupidity. Her boyfriend says he was aware that there was a gun in her gun safe in her house, but does not know how she got access to it. Some news sources, ABC and AP, yeah. So the rest of it is like, now that I've gotten some assurances, I will not be suspended for posting the final pages. Here's the pages 5 and 6, the final 2 pages of the manifesto. Rupp now talks about her extremely difficult relationship with her father, notes that her parents had divorced multiple times, and that her mother struggled with drug addiction. She also implies her father was an alcoholic. She expresses that she had been bullied at school, something her boyfriend emphasized to me as being a big factor in her pessimism about her life and anger towards other people. Court records I have seen show she is telling the truth about the repeat divorces in her family and ongoing legal battles between her mother and her father. As a note, to address the dumbass comments I keep getting, 1, I watermark them so journalists can't steal them. Journalists don't do any of their actual work anymore. What are you going to do, a DMCA on a neo-Nazis manifesto? What kind of freak-ass shit is this? Like, your journalism in this instance should stand on its own, you know? Like, I think she did do decent journalism in this story, okay? So I guess the point is that the shooter wasn't trans. The shooter was, yet, to everyone's surprise, another neo-Nazi. But her political worldview is not, in my opinion, the most important part of the story. If your goal is to actively de-radicalize larger swaths of the population, if your goal is to, even without actively de-radicalizing larger swaths of the population, but to just lower the gun violence metrics, then you have to tackle guns as a part of the problem. Because guns are, regardless of how much you enjoy them, the primary reason, the common denominator as to why America has so much more gun violence than any other country. Yeah. Natalie Samantha Rupp now. Reuters has confirmed the identity, and that means that, I mean, this also this is what she had posted before anyone else in mainstream media. So that's what leads me to believe the accuracy of her journalism. I sincerely apologize. Full page 4. I had meant to post this and crop the zoom in the main introduction and realized that in the chaos I didn't do that and upload it. Here's full page 4. She continued to list off killers she admired. There are also others I admire. Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold, Patrick Woods, Crucius, Guilherme Tauchi, plus many, many other people. Many, many more people. I was born November 7th, 2009, exactly 2 years after the Pekkas attack. Nobody knows why I'm doing this. I got the weapons and lies by manipulation of my father's stupidity. I planned on shooting myself a while ago, but maybe it's better for evolution rather than just one stupid, boring suicide. It's crazy that someone born in 2009 is already, you know, getting a weapon and doing school shootings. Like, that's wild.